Okay, hi, sisters. We're actually not going to take a look at Psalm 68 and Psalm 69 today, because I thought this was kind of important that we take a quick look at this God that we haven't currently taken a look at. And this God appears right beside Bel, or Baal, however you want to pronounce that. And so I just thought, rather than, because I don't really have the time to do a longish, well, I am probably going to do a longish video. But I just felt that Nebo should be in here somewhere for us to connect to how they built upon this man-made religious lie. And it absolutely does attest to the fact over time that they did so build precept upon precept to cause us all to fall backward. So this is not the study, the continued study from the last video of desolation, where she absolutely is shown becoming a desolate spirit when she comes from the Mount Sinai, which absolutely leads us to the word desolation. But that's not today's video. That'll probably be the next video. But for now, we're just going to run into this verse right quick. I say right quick. I'm never that quick lately. I'm sorry I've been so long putting a new video up. I've just had a lot of work, and when I did have the 2 or 3 little time alone that I could have maybe put one up, I'll tell you, I just did not feel like it. I didn't have no motivation or anything, just tired, and it's been an awful hot summer, awfully hot summer. So it does tend to drag you down, or, make you feel really drug out. But we're going to look at this verse, Isaiah 46, so that we can take a deep look at the god Nebo. So Isaiah 46 verse 1, this is where we found him. Bel, right beside Baal, that we've looked at continuously on this channel, boweth down. Nebo stoopeth. Their idols were upon the beasts and upon the cattle. Your carriages were heavy loaden. They are a burden to the weary beasts. They stoop. They bow down together. They could not deliver the burden, but themselves are gone into captivity. So, actually what this is going to lead us to, Baal, father, Nebu's son. That's your identification here of how they work on this building precept upon precept. But the end result is that they have gone into captivity because they could not deliver the burden. So we identified, of course, the burden as the deliverance of children. Why now do I see every man standing around with his hands on his hips as if he can give life? He can't. And then we see the daughter of Zion, who is the anointed one, sitting between the cherubim in, is it 2 Kings 19? And she says, the children have come to the birth, but there is not strength to deliver. So basically, the men had torn the women down so low. And then we get this whole idea that man delivers children, all right, which is what this is all validating. But they can't. They are not able to rescue the burden. They can't deliver children. That's solely on the part of the creator, the maker, the mother. But they themselves have gone into captivity, which is also, again, going to take us to Psalm 68, because the deliverance of this burden and rests with this Lord and this Lord alone is what it's going to tell you in Psalm 68. So what we're going to do here is we're going to go to Wikipedia, and we're going to take a look at what it says about this god Nebo. Akkadian and cuneiform, they give you both here. Jewish Babylonian Aramaic, Romanized Nebo, is the Babylonian patron god of literacy, the rational arts, scribes, and wisdom. Oh, look at that, wisdom. He is associated with the classical planet Mercury in Babylonian astronomy. All right, now I'll leave the link down below here, because it's Wikipedia, of course, where we're reading it from. And but Mercury is identified as the messenger planet, isn't it? So he's also taking over the role of, a heavenly messenger in a sense. And we're going to get this when we read down. So the etymology and meaning, it means announcer or authorized person. Oh my gosh. There you go. Nebo is an authorized man. That's basically what they're saying here. They're saying they've got person, but man, it was a man. It's never a woman. These gods are never women. These are males exclusively that leads us to the current day religious worship of man as God. All of these. And God says, well, you didn't want me, God. You wanted your kings. You know who wanted the kings? The kings wanted the kings. The men did. That's who wanted them. And over time, the women fell to the lie. So let's see what it says. Okay, I missed a part here. An answer authorized person, also meaning prophet. Oh, look at that. Isn't that interesting? But you know what? We don't need to study the Old Testament, and we certainly don't need to study these Old Testament gods and goddesses. We don't need to do that, especially the gods, because it's going to lead us to our current day statue in Daniel 2 that is standing, as we know on this channel. So Nebo is worshipped by the Babylonians and the Assyrian. Nebo gained prominence among the Babylonians in the first millennium BC when he was identified. This is fun. He was identified as the son of the god Marduk. Oh, we've got a son, and now we've got his father, Marduk. Look at that. A son and a father. So what do we know about Marduk? We know this. Let me see if I can find it. It is. The etymology for the name Marduk is generally understood to be derived from Amar Utu-ak, meaning bull calf of Utu. Okay, it's a bull calf, but what else? He is the son of the gods. Oh, we're getting more, father, son. So what does it say here, down here when we scroll down a little bit further? I should have marked this where it was. I had found it really easy last time. Let me see. It should be right here. Sorry about this. I found it so easy last time. Often when I'm alone, I can find things, and then Marduk and his son Nebo also shared a sanctuary in Nineveh, although it seemed that Nebo was the main deity in contrast to Marduk. Okay, this is interesting. Okay, but it does tell you Marduk was Baal, is what it tells you. And do you think I can find it now? It was so easy to find it. Oh my gosh. Every time. No wonder I'm tired of making videos. But read up on Marduk. He was a name of the solar calf deity, and it tells you that right in this rendering here somewhere. That it was a name for the solar calf deity. Right there. The personal name Martuku is not to be confused with the god Marduk. Marduk was commonly called Bel, Lord, in the first millennium BC. And so you see the Jews in particular were slowly bringing in this word Bel and trying to legitimize it, actually, is what they're trying to do. That's all I've seen them try to do, really, basically legitimize it. Yeah, calf of the sun. Oh my gosh. Sumerian, calf of the sun, solar calf. So we saw Mordecai's name, who took little Esther under his wing after they had actually murdered the wise women who would have raised these daughters not to bow to the king. God says, the presence of God, who was identified as the daughter of Zion herself, says, you didn't want me, you wanted your bloody kings, and you built and you built and you built upon them. And I told you in the day that when you do that, and that's fine, you go right ahead. This is all about legality, really. Because God says to her first begotten, daughter in Psalm 2 after they mock her wisdom. But then she says, this day have I begotten you, have I birthed you, my firstborn daughter. And then she says, ask of me the heathens, those idol worshippers, and I'll give them all to you, and you can do with them what you want once she's reborn out of the dust of the earth. So there was a purpose in everything that got done. We may not fully grasp it all, but there was a reason that it was good done. And it was so that, she still comes to teach you the truth, the Spirit does. And when she's rejected again and again, then you're ripe for judgment. And she says, in the day that you make these idols and you get ensnared by them, it's going to be impossible for you to pull yourself up from these idols. It's going to be impossible because they're going to lay precept upon precept, and it's going to take my strong ones, my preserved ones, to be able to break that down. Now, you know why they're preserved and why they're called strong. It takes a very strong mind and a very strong spirit to go against everything that they have hammered at you from the time you were born. And it takes a very strong spirit to be able to do that. And so that's why there are few. That's why there's very few of them. But anyway, we do get right here that who Marduk truly was. He was a god from ancient Mesopotamia and a patron deity of the city of Babylon who eventually rose to power and is still there under another name. But we saw that Mordecai's name meant follower of Marduk, the solar calf deity, who then it tells us, we just read it, Marduk was commonly called Bel, Lord. So he was a follower of Bel, which we get appearing here in Isaiah 46, verse 1. Bel boweth down. Bel is another name for your husband, who wanted to be worshipped as God. Nebo stoopeth down, while his son. Their idols were upon the beasts and upon the cattle. Your carriages were heavy load, and they are a burden to the weary beast. They stoop. They bow down together. They could not deliver the burden, but themselves are gone into captivity. So the men began to fall for their own idolizing of self. That's the abomination of desolation. A man inside of a man shall be a desolate spirit, which is why we brought in Mount Sinai in the very last video. We'll carry it over into the next, hopefully, if I get time, in the upcoming weeks or months ahead. So I never know when I'm going to be able to post a video, when I'm going to feel like it, so forgive me for that. But it's clear that Marduk was commonly called Bel, Lord, in the first millennium, bull calf of Utu. He is the son of the sun. See? So we do get a continuation of corruption from generation to generation, right? They are evil from generation to generation. So they taught it from generation to generation. They applied, what was it I just said? Precept upon precept is what they did. And they have never come away from these false precepts from the beginning. And that's why you are called a strong one or a preserved one. She has chosen to preserve a core group in her name, in her own glory, for her own glory. Am I in Nebo? Yeah, Nebo is worshipped in Babylon's sister city of Borsippa, from where his statue was taken to Babylon each new year, watch this, so that he could pay his respects to his father. Yeah, to his daddy. Daddy. Nebu's symbol included a stylus resting on a tablet as well as a simple wedge shape. King Nabonidus, whose name references Nebu, these are all about kings who wanted worship. You didn't want me, God says, the daughter of Zion, who was the anointed one. She was also called the High Lord. Now, I'm not so sure that God isn't an invented term here, and that she was just called a Lord or a lady. They like to call queens ladies of the house, but that made her the sovereign with the law from heaven. And they completely rejected after these kings were shooting at the daughters as they passed over the wall with the word of God. And they rejected them. They did not want them. They put in a false foundation because these daughters were to be the foundation of this world. They shot at these daughters, your archers, your Baal. There you go. Archers that shot at the daughters as they passed over the wall in Joseph's blessings, identifying the feminine blessing, which was the right to rule over her own children. But because the kings rejected her and didn't want God, you didn't want me, you wanted a king, and continued to build on this idea of man as God, Bel, bridegroom, Lord, Master, that's Jesus, that's Allah, that's Yahweh, who they tend to say is Father, though they don't really want to say it's Father, can't speak the name, but it was really daughter Zion's name that they did not want to speak. She sat between the cherubim. She says, the children have come to the birth, but there is not strength to deliver, because Bel boweth down, Nebo stoopeth. They have all gone into captivity under their own religious lie and are unable to deliver the burden because it rests with the women. Yeah, it was the women. And they were in total denial about that. Babylon, he was taken to Babylon, the statue, his image, was taken to Babylon each new year so that he could pay his respect to his father. Nebu's symbol included a stylus resting tablet, and King Nabonidus, whose name references Nebu, had a royal scepter topped with Nebu's wedge. Clay tablets with a special calligraphic skill were used as offerings at Nebu's temple. His wife was the Akkadian goddess Tashmet. All right. So we know over time what they tend to do with these gods like Bel, right? Because we know Bel, we see the harlot exalted in man's heart in Isaiah 47. And God's sister, come down, Babylon, there is no throne for you, there never was. But what happens with a harlot spirit that man exalts in his heart, so she'll bow to him, is that you actually get Bel, another name for your husband and bridegroom, as the head of Babylon, which is where we're living. We're under the headship of man. Our husband's God. He's God. He's a made-up God. He's a king. But God told you you didn't want God, you wanted a king. And by extension, it meant you were going to live under a bitter law system called wormwood that was going to come out of his mouth, Bel's mouth, and by extension, his son's mouth. And you can say, well, that's not true. Oh, but it is true. You better look around you and see the reality of it, as opposed to what they try to tell you with dripping words of butter off of their lips, when it's really just drawn swords in their hearts. And I've heard enough of it off the pulpit to know that though it's wrapped in gentleness, that it's true hate in their heart of hearts. Woman is nothing to man. Just nothing but somebody. You better listen to me, woman. Yeah, he's Bel. He's head of Babylon. He is. So he was also the inventor of, I can't see that word because it's hid. Oh, wait. Let me go up here. Nebu was the patron god of scribes, literacy, and wisdom. He was also the inventor of writing, a divine scribe, the patron god of the rational arts, and a god of vegetation. As a god of writing, Nebu inscribes the fates assigned to men, and he was equated with the scribe god Ninurta. I ain't going to hit on that. So he was associated with the Mesopotamian god. Oh, here we go again. We've looked at Sin. That god Sin. Whose name begins with Sin? Sennacherib. Who was Sennacherib coming against and blaspheming her holy name? We find him blaspheming her in chapters like, and it's a double chapter, like 2 Kings 19, and I believe it's repeat chapters Isaiah 37, but I can't be certain of that anymore. But Sennacherib, when we broke his name down, Senna, and then cherub, a cherub. Senna meant a blackberry bush, and a blackberry bush is a thorny bush. So they were thorny, these sons of God were thorny, and they were actually surrounding the rose of Sharon, identified as the daughter of Zion herself. Yes. And they were surrounding her, these thorns, and they were blaspheming her holy name. And the daughter of Zion has shaken her head at thee. To whom hast thou blasphemed? Well, it was her that he was blaspheming. And Senna says to Hezekiah in that chapter, we've looked at it and I've spoken on it many times, you believe this God, whose high places you went up and tore down. Now, what were the high places that were the feminine representation that Hezekiah tore down? Now, they also throw Baal in there. But what they were trying to do was to develop this two male idea. So they'll tell you they tore Baal down, but then King Hezekiah had said, you can come worship at our altar, which was in Judah, which is actually Baal. So, they're looking at burying the truth and laying precept upon precept upon precept. But we know that the high places that represented the divine feminine that Hezekiah tore down was the pillar. We know that's a feminine representation. The only time a pillar is put on a grave is put on Rachel's grave. There's other reasons that we know this. I'm not going to go into them. The kings also went up and took their oaths upon the pillars. And that pillar was representing the oath that they took to the divine feminine. All right. So that's what the pillar represented. We also get the Nahashta, the serpent wrapped around the pole. Now, if you've been with me, you absolutely know why that's a feminine. So they went up and they tore the Nahashta down. And God wasn't against this. We get the pillar, the Nahashta, we get the groves. That may also be the pillars. The forest and the trees. We get Abraham going up and planting a forest in Isaiah 21, and there he called on the true Lord, the name of the true Lord, the true God. So, and that was the feminine. Again, we traced it all out. I'm not going to go into a great deal of detail. But the pillar, the Nahashta, and there was another one. Oh, crap. And I can't remember. But anyway, we know that Hezekiah tore these down. And so Sennacherib mocks him, right? And Sennacherib says, you're going to put your faith in this God to deliver you. Because Hezekiah had actually went up to she that sat between the cherubim and had petitioned to her to actually deliver him out of the hands of Sennacherib. And Sennacherib is here seen mocking she that sits between the cherubim and blaspheming her. And saying, I went up to your high places, to the house in the forest of Lebanon, and I tore your high cedars down. You can't deliver nothing, right? So he was mocking and blaspheming the Holy One. And here we get, as an oracle, he was associated with a Mesopotamian moon god, Sin. So Nebo, who was the son, supposedly, of Marduk, who was the solar calf deity, also another name for Baal, your husband, Lord, and God, who wanted to rule over woman or over the daughters of Israel, who was where your wise women were. They were called. But what was the Mesopotamian god he was associated with? Well, we find names in Egypt, one called Sin, and we know that that was due because of Sennacherib. Yes. So the beginning of his name is going to take you here. Actually, I'll do this in a minute. I'll pull up Sennacherib's name, and it'll take you right there. So Sin is Akkadian, also known as Nana, Sumerian, is the Mesopotamian god representing the moon. While these two names originate in two different languages, respectively Akkadian and Sumerian, they were already used interchangeably to refer to one deity in the early dynastic period. They were sometimes combined in the double name Nana Suen, a third well-attested name in Dilim Babar. So it was, we understood what this name meant. Now, they're not going to, if we want it to read further down, we'll get it. But when we pull up Sin, what we found it to mean was that Sin has replaced the brothers, had actually reshaped. That's what it meant. And it should be saying it here, and it's not. So they've definitely altered some of this information. They've changed it. Let me see if I can find it. So the main cult center of sin was Ur. Remember, Abraham was sent to Ur. He was already associated with the city in the early dynastic period. Okay. So we don't really care to go into all that. But he was the moon god, and why that becomes important is that Sennacherib was actually reshaping the brethren to come against the daughters inside the nation of Israel. It means he was actually to reform clay. So he was reshaping the brethren, and what we know about the moon is it's the ruler of the night, right? Ruler of darkness, which we're said to be in right now. And then we get the Shulamite saying, the false light, the false sun has shone upon me and made me black. Why would it make her black? Because the false light that was ruling was coming from the moon, the night. The moon that had been sin has reshaped the brethren to go against her, right? And it comes out now as a false light ruling, right? And we're going to know that it's Ephraim that was supposed to be the ruler identified as the sun. All right. Because of, where was it? Isaiah 49, right here. Right? Oh, give me the whole chapter. God says in Isaiah 49, so because my computer is refusing to move at this point, we'll paraphrase. God says to Ephraim, you are the firstborn of my womb. We're identifying the firstborn as a daughter. It states it with the removal of all the he pronouns. It states it's her. Ephraim is the firstborn of the womb that will also be a light to the Gentiles. So she says, it is too small a thing for you to be my servant, that's Israel, Ephraim, to restore the tribes of Israel, not Jacob, because he wrestled her and stole her birthright from her. And bring back those of Israel I have kept. These are the preserved. These are the strong ones who can reason and has strengthened the spirit to be able to turn the battle at the gate. They come up with the truth. I will also make you a light for the Gentiles that my salvation may reach to the ends of the earth. So it's not this made up gospel that they preach to the four corners of the world. It's the truth of the Spirit that gets taught to the four corners of the world. And it is through the firstborn daughter called Ephraim here, that is the servant of God, she. And now says the God who formed me from her womb to be her servant, to bring Israel back to her, that Israel might be gathered to her. Return, return, O Shulamite. What might we see when the Shulamite returns? As it were the company of two armies. For I am honored in the sight of God, and my God is my strength. And she is. She's our strength to see the truth. The Holy Spirit is our mother. The creator, the potter, the maker that was denied in the beginning. And they put in a false foundation, the harlot spirit. So when we go, let's just pull up the name Sennacherib here. Oh, sorry about that, folks. Where is it? Am I in the right place? Wikipedia. Okay, so we've done this many times. So when we go in, we get him linked to the moon god. Sennacherib, Neo-Assyrian, meaning, or Sennacherib, meaning sin has replaced the brother. So that's the actual meaning of Sennacherib's name. Sin has replaced the brother. So it highlights the word sin here, S-I-N. So we get a double play on sin, actually, as in the wickedness in man's heart, the sin. But they were reshaped, is the idea, too, when you go in on the Strong's Hebrew words. It's going to say clay, as in reshaping clay. And she says, there, Adam dealt treacherously with me, unfaithfully with me there. Well, the place she's talking about, I believe, is right here, right? They went up to Upper Beth Horon and tore her high house down, representing the female body. That's right, the female body. We have two tabernacles in existence, not one. The men know this. more than we do. You know how they know it? Because they refuse to give us our rights. Yeah. No, we have no rights. No, because now we're under his tabernacle because they tore ours down, and they do so under the law every chance they get. Watch them doing it now. Our rights don't come from him, but he's got it in his head that he can tell us what we can and can't do. His head ain't my head. This is my head. I have my own head. That ain't your head, boys, and you didn't birth me. You didn't create me, and I'm not made in your image. I'm made in my mother's image. And by the way, the creator and potter also made you. You may not be made exactly in her image, but she's the one that made and created all things. Yeah, that was denied in the very beginning. So we get Nebo here all being connected to the Baal. He's identified as the son of Marduk. Marduk's identified almost in some sense when you get reading it as the son of the solar calf deity. And another name for him was Baal, right? So we get how they laid precept upon precept, and they were warned in the Old Testament. She said, if you do this thing, I promise you, it's going to be so hard for you to pull out of it, that it's going to be my preserved ones that's going to be strong enough. And we're not talking about, hey, strengthen your bloody arm. God says that's the power of your God. The power of your God is in your arm. The power of the true living God comes from the mind and the spirit, and that's why God calls these her preserved ones. She says, my glory, I will not give it to another. It doesn't go to a man. My glory goes to my daughters. And it is through my glory, my daughters, that the truth will be known. And it will go out to the four corners of the world. And my truth. That's right. That's the true gospel. Not, man is your head, woman, and God is he. Father didn't make me. I'm made in my mother's image. There's 2 tabernacles below, not 1. Now, these are basic truths that just looking around with your eyeballs, you ought to be able to see them. But because of that pride of Adam, of Satan, and yes, he's one and the same, he couldn't stand taking the law off of her tongue, though she had every right. It was her birthright. These are her children. They were supposed to be, and they were supposed to hearken to her law. When he removed that from her over time, and it was over time, and he did so through violence. Violence was in their heart. Drawn swords was in their heart. And they were without the truth. They were not valiant for the truth on this earth. They're valiant for the lie. And so when they remove that from her and begin to idolize self as God, and they begin to idolize themselves, man inside of man, as God, then of course they become what's known as the Abomination of Desolation. And the Abomination of Desolation, oh, they love to go over and over this, over the Abomination of Desolation and forget the truth that you got a reason. It's just like the number 666 that we discovered links straight back to King Solomon, who was creating the beast system and was in fact putting in a harlot spirit as the foundation stone that would bow to Moloch or Melech, king as Lord and God. So you didn't want me, you wanted a king, and here at the end they still want their king, you see? So it's proving that it's all done just what she said it was going to do. It was going to lead back to, she told the woman, she said, this will lead to your complete, utter debasement. You will stagger. You will be astonished at what he will do to you under the law when you place that in his hand and bow down to his made-up idols of himself as God. And she told the men at the end, she said, you will fall into this snare with your pride, with your arrogance, and I promise you, you will not be able to get out of the ditch that you have created. And so then she says, I have preserved a few in my honor, in my glory, in my name, that will speak my truth, and you will have the choice to accept that truth, her law, her new thing, in the earth, or reject it. And in the day that you reject it, you will be cut away, snip, snip, with a pair of scissors. That's your foreskin, gone. because the foreskin represents a covenant with the harlot spirit, not the righteous. So the abomination of desolation, a man inside of a man. Desolation takes us to the spirit, yet more the children of the desolate than of she who has a husband. She who has a husband, of course, was Baal herself. She's married to Baal because they tore her tabernacle down, so she's really him, spouting his lies. And it says so in one of these verses here, but I've babbled so long now I can't find it. They have corrupted themselves as in the days of Gibeah. She will remember their guilt. She will punish their sins. I found Israel like grapes in the wilderness. I saw your fathers as the first fruits of the fig tree in the first season. Actually, I saw your mothers. But they went to Baal Peor. Your mothers went to Baal Peor and consecrated themselves to shame. And they did. Baal, husband, bride, bridegroom, Lord, master. So they became as detestable as the thing that they loved. There it is. They became as detestable as the thing that they loved. So you know what you get in Isaiah 54:1? Baal with Baal. So the women became Baal because they're teaching him as God. And they loved him. They did. They loved a man. And women have been a real fool for him. He, on the other hand, oh no, he hasn't. He's put a yoke on your neck and told you that you aren't entitled to rights or goods, that you're all one tabernacle, when you're really not. They went up to Upper Beth Horon and tore her house down, house in the forest of Lebanon, and where the water was, that these daughters would wash you in the water from the upper pool with a fuller's soap. And they tore all of that down. We've discussed it over and over, so we know it. But they became as testable as the thing that they loved. Ephraim's glory will fly away like a bird, and no birth, no pregnancy, and no conception. And so you see, we get it round and round and round. The abomination of desolation, a man teaching himself is God, ignoring her law shall be a desolate spirit. Look not upon me, the false light has shone upon me. It made me black. My mother's sons were angry with me. They made me the keeper of the vineyard, but my own I have neglected. So she has not been birthing her children into the truth of life. And God says Ephraim is a foolish child. When the way of life opens up for her, she does not appear. Well, she has this time. She's also the witness in the earth, the Holy Spirit in the earth. She has the Holy Spirit placed upon her to testify. So there we go with sin again. Isaiah 46, we've discussed. When I found Israel, yeah, they became just like the thing that they loved. They became as detestable as the idols, and women are. So Ephraim has become like a gullible dove. See, feminine, without sense. They call to Egypt and they go to Assyria. So over time, they are found turning to Egypt and to Assyria as opposed to the truth. You didn't want me, you wanted a king. And so they get what they want. But we also get in Isaiah 50 that he turns on her. She says, my own equal, and you turned on me in the house of God. We walked to the house of God together, and you turned on me. And then she says, oh, that I had the wings of a dove. I would fly away into the wilderness. No, that's Psalm 55, not Psalm 50. In Psalm 50, she says, you turned on me. I think it's there. No, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it is Psalm 55. And she says, oh, that I had the wings of a dove. So Ephraim has become like a silly dove without sense. But we also get that she says, oh, that there was a lodge of wayfaring men. I would turn and leave this people. Well, she did leave the people. She did leave them. She's found out in the tents of Kedar. The Shulamite is compared to the tents of Kedar. And so we know that she ended up amongst the tents of Kedar and left her own people. But she says, when I speak, they are for war. And they were all for war. It didn't matter where she went. They were all for war against her. They turned on her. And they destroyed her covenant out of the land. And it's the pride at the end. They just will not listen. And she told them, she said, I've told you, when you do this thing, in the end, you are not going to be able to pull yourself up out of the ditch that you have fell into. You're just not going to be able to do it. It's going to take a very, very strong-minded and strong-willed individual, which I have already marked them for my own. So she says, your idol can't tell you these things. Your idol Jesus, your idol Yahweh, your idol Allah cannot tell you these things. She tells you that in Isaiah 48. She says, it's my glory that will declare the truth. She says, none of your idols can declare these things. And they can't. Jesus didn't tell you what the key of David meant. Oh no, he couldn't tell you that. You know why? Because Baal was using his mouth to speak through. That's your idol. This isn't exactly the video I wanted to make, but Revelation 6:13, and the stars in the sky fell to earth as fig drop from a fig tree when shaken by a strong wind. Allegorical to empty doctrines. So the strong wind that is actually causing them to fall is actually the original lie of Baal, bridegroom, male gods, king gods, waiting for their king to come and get them. God says you fell into this snare and you're not going to be able to get out of it. It's going to take a very, very strong individual. And she says, I'll place that strength upon my daughters. They'll be the ones that will come away from it. And they're called the light of the world. They're called Israel, not Jacob. It begins with them. They are also identified as the first fruits. We linked Revelations 14:4 to black. Besmirched means black. These daughters, the first fruits that come away from Babylon, who's the harlot bowed down at husband's feet, can't come up out of the ditch, not strong enough to come up out of the ditch, not smart enough, don't got the desire to look for the truth, not saying, hey, there's something wrong with he. Just can't be bothered with it, not strong enough to answer those questions either, or to listen to anybody else that can answer those questions. But 14:4 takes you straight back to the Shulamite. Absolutely. And these are your first fruits coming away from the harlot. And it is your righteous daughters. That's a new thing seen in the earth with not a new wine. I found a verse in the Old Testament tells you, what is it? Let me see if I can find Hosea 4:11. Promiscuity, wine, and new wine take away understanding. So is it that the new wine that they keep speaking on, they're hoping to alter, this current religion and tweak it so that they can re-preach the wine again, which we've identified, allegorized as a Red Sea, that the presence of God must part. She says, I come not to bring peace, I come to bring a sword. That's the word of truth. It'll be a small group that I take out through. Narrow is the path. Few be that find it. They don't want it. And yet the first fruits, once the first fruits come into existence, we are shown that it is a promise that is being fulfilled by God. That is, if the first fruits are holy over time, they are able to purify the lump, the body. So first of all, that's a female body. That's a female temple coming into existence that was torn out of existence. And one angel says to another, how long will this defiling of our temple last, of the female temple last? That's 2,300 days. And so we purify our temples when we come to the knowledge of the truth of who God truly is. And that's not these male idols with a man on the pulpit preaching himself out of pride, like Satan, his father, Adam, the first Adam, who accused Beelzebub, the accuser, Baal, husband, bridegroom, Lord, Master, telling us that we have no rights, right? Telling us that we need to be silent. Shh. Let Baal talk. Shh. He's your head. Girls, don't try to think and use your own brain. That's what he's teaching you. And you can't say no to his sexual advances, right? It's pervy. Especially when you got 5 wise virgins and 5 foolish. I don't know what these girls are thinking, really. I know what the boys are thinking. I just don't know what the girls are thinking, honestly. Anyway, it says they'll become just as perverse as that they worship, and they have. These women have. So the stars, Israel is identified as a fig tree. So obviously it's saying that Israel, that fed out this lie, religious lie, to the 4 corners of the world, is also Babylon, that fed the religious lie of man as God. So you can take your pick. You can take your pick between one male, Yahweh, which they'll typically tell you is father, although they're really not saying it's father, but they really are. Then you can take your pick at the triple male Godhead in Christianity, or you can take your look at Islam, which was said to have fed out actually from Catholicism, which fed out from Christianity, which fed out from Babylon, Israel. Who twisted the word of God, the truth, didn't want to hear it. Didn't want to hear the truth. It says, you have transgressed my laws, you have transgressed my laws, and then they try to overcome that by saying, well, a man came and died for the law, fulfilled the law perfectly. No, he didn't. No, he did not. Number one, he couldn't fulfill the Torah, especially the feminine aspects of the Torah law. How does a man fulfill that? Well, number one, how does he fulfill the law of bitter waters? I mean, just ask yourself, and yes, that law of bitter waters does so appear in the Bible. It appears in Numbers 5. So you're going to be hard-pressed to say, well, that was a mistake. They didn't really know what they were saying, which, accordingly, has actually been removed from the Torah law because it was causing so much upset amongst the women. This law of bitter waters being one of the many that actually he couldn't fulfill. Because once you go in and you study it and you compare it to the Old Testament, then you go, there's no way he could. There's absolutely no way. And he certainly didn't fulfill the 10 Commandments because he became an idol himself. He wanted himself worshipped. And it says you were to have no other God before you. Well, you do. So no, you transgressed my holy laws, is what she says. And you rejected my 10 Commandments. And anyway, that's the video. I'm going to call it at that. I think there's more stuff I wanted to say, but when I get tired, oh my gosh. She's the light of the world. Yes, she is. I just don't know if there was something here. Hopefully I said everything I wanted to say. Let me see, what's this? Okay, so that's on to a new. So the next video, hopefully, will be the continuation from the actual last video that's posted here on 8th Day Dawning. Sorry it's been so long, just, kind of busy with life and tired, just feeling that exhausted feeling like so many of us is feeling in a world like we live in. So thanks for being here. Thanks for watching. I pray the Lord blesses you with an abundance of truth. And I do hope you all have a lovely day.